Hi everyone. With the death of Queen Elizabeth II on the 8th of September, Prince Charles was pronounced King of the United Kingdom and 14 other Commonwealth realms. Now, although King Charles III acts as a focus for national identity, unity and pride, gives a sense of stability and continuity, officially recognizes success and excellence, and supports the ideal of voluntary service, he reigns, but he doesn't rule. You see, even though the sovereign is head of state, the ability to make and pass legislation resides with an elected parliament. That means the king is a figurehead, a bit like a puppet king, who has the title of king but has no power or authority over his kingdom. The writer to the Hebrews explains in chapter 2 that in putting everything under Christ, God left nothing that is not subject to him, yet at present we do not see everything subject to him. Unlike a puppet king, Jesus has all the authority and power to rule and reign over his kingdom. The question is, however, do we treat Jesus as a puppet, or is he really king of our lives? Let's take a look. In his letter to the Colossians, the Apostle Paul prays for the believers. And as you read what he prays, you realize that Paul lived in a very different realm. His own life revealed what it means to live under the rule of King Jesus, and his prayer for the Colossians gives us a glimpse of some of the characteristics of true servanthood. Paul prays, "For this reason, since the day we heard about you, we have not stopped praying for you. We continually ask God to fill you with the knowledge of his will through all the wisdom and understanding that the Spirit gives, so that you may live a life worthy of the Lord and please him in every way, bearing fruit in every good work, growing in the knowledge of God, being strengthened with all power according to his glorious might, so that you may have great endurance and patience, and giving joyful thanks to the Father, who has qualified you to share in the inheritance of his holy people in the kingdom of light. For he has rescued us from the dominion of darkness and brought us into the kingdom of the Son he loves, in whom we have redemption, the forgiveness of sins." The first thing Paul demonstrates is his concern for others, as he continuously intercedes for the believers. Just as King Jesus laid down his life for us and now lives to intercede for us, true servants follow his example and move beyond their self-centeredness to consider others and pray for them. Paul then prays that God would fill the believers with the knowledge of his will. True servants of the King will seek to know his will so that they can obey him. It seems to me that with much of the church's attention on God's grace and salvation by faith rather than works, we have neglected the teaching on simple obedience to our King. Jesus says, "If you love me, you will obey what I command." Living a life worthy of the Lord is the third characteristic of true servanthood. It means honoring the King as we seek to reflect his nature and his ways with our lives. We've been rescued from the kingdom of darkness and have been brought into Christ's kingdom, but it's only as we submit to our King and seek to represent him and his kingdom that we will live lives worthy of the Lord. The fourth characteristic of true servanthood that Paul addresses is living to please the Lord. I believe Jesus pleased the Father not only because he was completely obedient to the Father, but because he went beyond doing what the Father wanted and did what the Father liked. In the same way, true servants will not only do the will of their King, but will try to find out what gives him pleasure and do what touches his heart. Jesus says in John 15:8, "This is to my Father's glory that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples." Fruitfulness is the evidence of servanthood. That's why Paul prays that the church would bear fruit in every good work. Those who are submitted to the king will be concerned with the king's business of furthering his kingdom. Unfortunately, as Paul puts it in Philippians 2:21, everyone looks out for his own interests, not those of Jesus Christ. True servants, however, will make the king's business their priority and seek to do good works like reaching the lost, feeding the poor, building the church, and doing the works of their king. Just as Paul longed to know Christ, he prays that the church would grow in their knowledge of God. True servants pursue a deep relationship with the king to know him intimately. They spend time with him because they know it is through their knowledge of him that his divine power gives them everything they need for life and godliness. For this reason, true servants don't only want to grow in their knowledge of their king, but also understand that he wants to empower them to do his will. That is why Paul prays that the church would be strengthened according to his glorious might. True servants seek to be strengthened by their king so that they can persevere in faith and find help in their time of need. Paul then prays that the believers would joyfully give thanks to the Father for what he has done for them. This characteristic of true servanthood is so important to the apostle that he tells the church later on in his letter to be thankful and to relate to one another and to God with gratitude in their hearts. Gratitude has the power to overcome dissatisfaction, frustration, and unfulfilled worldly desires as we remember what our King has done for us, is doing for us, and will do for us. Finally, Paul reminds the church that they have been rescued from the kingdom of darkness and have been brought into Christ's kingdom. This is a recurring theme in Paul's letters, and one senses the urgency of his prayer for the church to understand that they've been bought with a price and no longer belong to themselves, but to the King and his kingdom. True servants live in the reality of belonging to Christ and his kingdom. I hope these 9 characteristics of true servanthood will help us to make sure Jesus is not just a puppet in our lives, but that he is truly King of our lives. Let's make every effort to submit to his rule and reign so that we live the kingdom life. Amen. Amen. God bless you.